Condos, transportation infrastructure, big box stores. It seems as though the entire Golden Horseshoe is under construction. While the cranes in the sky denote progress to some, others worry that these projects may negatively change the character of their neighborhood. But when does voicing concern become NIMBYism? Joining us now to help answer that, Jennifer Keesmaat. She's chief planner for the City of Toronto. Peter Kutenbrouwer, he is Toronto columnist with the National Post. And Sean Conway, former MPP for nearly 30 years, now public policy advisor in the Gowlings law firm's Toronto office. It's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here for the first time. And we go way back, you and I, right?
Let's not go there.
Do you know the first time we did a program here together?
Don't remind this audience of how old we really are.
1992.
Wow.
We did our first program here called Fourth Reading. Lovely to have you back.
Glad to be back.
I'm going to start with Jennifer, though, because this is your first time to our studio, and I think we probably just need to get a better understanding of what your office actually does to help set up the discussion. So tell us.
Okay, well, there's a lot of things that we do, and they're quite broad. We do everything from transportation planning, which includes transit planning, figuring out how the network should evolve and change and where the investments ought to be made. We are also responsible for urban design, so looking at the character of the streets, the way buildings are designed, the way the buildings interface with one another, so looking at things like setbacks, the amount of glazing on the front of buildings. We're also responsible for heritage preservation, so identifying the heritage resources in the city that ought to be protected as the city develops and changes.
Do you have to sign off on everything?
I do ultimately, but I have a team of directors who I work with. We're also responsible for zoning, so we have a zoning bylaw, which of course we are required. It's a regulatory document. And in the context of our zoning team, we're also responsible for environmental planning, so looking at things like our green roof policy. We've developed the green roof policy and we monitor it as well. We also then are responsible for strategic initiatives. So looking at things like citywide policy. We just went through a process last year of looking at all of our employment lands across the entire city. And we actually wrote a 600-page report, if you can imagine, making recommendations with respect to ways that we can protect our employment lands.
Tell me that's it.
Well, all of that is really only half of the story.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Because an enormous part of what we do is community planning, and I haven't even talked about that
Jennifer,
yet.
it's an hour show.
But avenue studies, all that kind of stuff. I know there's a real answer, and it's difficult to truncate it.
I hear you. It looks like there are more cranes in the sky in this city than in any other city in North America. I think that's the case. Do you have any idea how many development applications your office received last year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we are out by a long shot. We have 130 tall buildings under construction in this city. I think the second place city is New York City. It's down somewhere in the 80s. But we also have 58 mid-rise buildings under construction in the city. So you put those together, there's a ton that's happening. We received over 5,600 applications last year. So those are committee of adjustment applications, so people wanting to add an addition on their home or make a change to their home. Those are heritage permit applications, and then what we call complex applications. So a developer comes forward and wants to propose a large redevelopment of a site that includes several different buildings and a public space and amenities. So we received thousands of those applications as well, across the entire city.
And what are the principles that you look for in deciding whether or not to approve what people want to do?
So we are governed by our official plan, which is a council-approved policy. And when a proposal comes forward, we evaluate it against the objectives of the official plan. And then we make a recommendation to City Council, whether it's a good idea to support it, whether it's in keeping with the vision for the city, or whether it would detract from the vision of the city. So we have lots of policies and guidelines that are specific to different kinds of development. So we have mid-rise guidelines for when we have a building between 6 and 12 stories. We have tall building guidelines for tall buildings that come forward because tall buildings have very special obligations. And those guidelines are all about creating a great pedestrian environment. The way a building is designed can either make it really windy at the base of a building or improve the pedestrian environment at the base of the building. The design, looking at the design quality, for example, looking at the sustainability. So we also have Tier 1 and Tier 2 green standards, and we evaluate buildings against those standards as well. We are, in our official plan at a very high level, We are concerned about increasing affordable housing, increasing the diversity of our employment land base. We are concerned about sustainability, walkable neighborhoods, and creating complete communities. So ensure that we're adding a diversity of uses in each neighborhood so that people have the option to undertake the activities of their daily life within walking distance.
Okay, with that background in mind, thank you for that. With that background in mind, let's put up, I think we've got a graphic of this, a few of the projects in Ontario's capital city these days that are causing considerable consternation. For example, some residents in the west end of Toronto fear that diesel exhaust from the soon-to-be completed rail line to Pearson Airport will harm their health. There are others that think that the proposed expansion of the Billy Bishop, some call the Island Airport, will be a blemish on Toronto's waterfront. There are some, including I think one of the guests on this program, maybe the chief planner for Toronto, who thought that Frank Gehry's design for David Mirvish for 3 new towers on King Street in downtown is too much for that part of the city. And then there is Kensington Market residents who've been protesting against plans to open a Walmart and a Loblaws near them. As a result of the protests, Walmart is not moving forward with its plans. Sean, let me go to you at this point, because your first election was what year?
The spring of 1979. The spring, I was nominated in the spring of 1975, so it's almost 39 years ago.
That you first started coming to the city and watching it grow. Does it feel to you as if there is more conflict around development today than in the past?
Well, in the mid-1970s, we were still reverberating with the great Spadina debate. You know, people forget that in the late 1960s and famously in the 1971 Ontario election, one of the great issues was, should we proceed with or should we stop Spadina? And
this is the expressway.
Young Mr. William Grenville Davis became quite a hero by stopping an expressway that had reached or was about to reach Eglinton. So now, having said that, as both you and Jennifer have pointed out, there has been a lot of development, particularly in the core of Toronto. We're seeing some of the most remarkable intensification that I can recall in my lifetime. So we shouldn't be surprised that, for example, if you're going to put thousands and thousands of new units south of Bloor, that neighborhoods that are used to single-family environments or university students or whatever are going to take note of what appears to be and what is a significant change in circumstance.
You heard the planning department's ideals for principles for guidelines for development. Are you on side with those principles?
I'm on side with the principles, absolutely. But what I thought was maybe interesting about the question and the answer is to ask the chief planner, how do you want the city to plan? What are your rules for how to plan the city? Well, the fact is that the chief planner and the planning department rarely gets to decide. I mean, in the city of Toronto, most of the buildings that get up, they're either approved by council, which, like as not, is going to overrule the planning department and do whatever council sees fit, or if council takes a strong stand, it goes to the Ontario Municipal Board, which in its wisdom usually overrules and sides generally in favor of the developer. So I would say that I'm thrilled to hear Jennifer's idea of how the city should be planned. It's just unfortunate that the city does not end up looking the way the planning department wants it to.
Let's understand that a little better. You make recommendations, but council ultimately has the final word, is that right?
Well, that's true, and I think I'm going to have to keep Peter a little bit honest here, because 4% of our applications, so of all those applications, only 4% end up going to the Ontario Municipal Board. So there's a bit of a mythology about the board.
What percentage of them get approved based on the recommendations of the planning department?
Well, quite a few of them. In fact, the vast majority of them are recommendations that are not contentious, that you don't hear about. And importantly, there's a process of negotiation that goes on with every application. And this is a good thing, because when the city's changing very quickly, by the time you get your policy framework in place, you've got a new context that you're responding to. But just to go back for a minute, so 4% of our applications end up at the Ontario Municipal Board. Of those 4%, we win just over 50%. So we're talking about less than 2% of our proposals are decided against the city planning position at the Ontario Municipal Board. Now, some of them are very high profile, that's absolutely true, but it's important to kind of put this into perspective, because there's this mythology that we don't in fact control our future. And guess what? I actually don't think that's true. If you look at, and I could show you a very lengthy PowerPoint presentation at the proposals that come in, the negotiation that takes place with the community, with the city councillor, with the city planning department, and then what moves forward either through a settlement or through a recommendation at council, you'll see that there's a very powerful process of negotiation that goes on, which is a good thing in a democracy, that in fact leads to some pretty exceptional projects.
Well, let's see if we can understand a little better about what's in the public interest and what isn't. And again, calling on your political background, how do you define what's in the public interest, or does the most public good, when you're considering some of these more controversial projects?
Well, let's take a very good example. If we're going to put, and according to TD Economics, a report which I read just a year or so ago, we've, in the period, and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the first decade of the 21st century, Toronto actually opened 50,000 condo units at or south of Bloor, I think was the number.
More than that.
Well, whatever.
Yeah,
but
we now have 200,000 people living in the
But
downtown
there was,
core.
clearly a lot. And so one of the obvious questions is, if you're going to do that, where are those people going to get food? It is clearly an obvious question to ask. And so whatever arrangements were in a very low density neighborhood before for food are clearly going to have to be re-examined. So public interest would suggest that if you're going to allow this kind of growth, and I'm a big believer in intensification, then clearly what are you going to do to provide not just for food, but what's the plan to move people around? Well, the concern I have, quite frankly, and I have lived at Bay and Bloor for almost 40 years on a part-time basis, and I'm watching the stress of our transit system. I'm a road warrior. I've spent more of my life in a car than I ever wanted to, but I can tell you, in what we used to call metropolitan Toronto, the car is clearly in decline. I like driving, but you just simply can't easily get around. So presumably, with the kind of growth and the kind of intensification, a public interest mandate would suggest there have to be significant investments in public transit or in some of the other alternatives. Like, I walk a lot downtown. I see a lot of people cycling. If you're not going to be able to drive, you're going to have to get around. So public transit clearly seems to me the public interest number one, and then cycling and walking are clearly options that are going to have to be encouraged.
But Peter, every time somebody wants to get something built in the capital city of Ontario, there almost are always groups that come out of the woodwork saying, sorry, not consistent with what we want our neighborhood to look like, not in our backyard, thanks very much. Does it seem to you like there's more of that these days than in the past?
There's a lot. And I mean, I guess it's, if you listen to what we described earlier about the quantity of development that's going on, it's, as our guests have pointed out, it's hardly surprising that people, I think that one of the councillors once referred to them as the crowd with the pitchforks who show up at community council, and they will pack the place to the rafters and they will scream and they get 5 minutes each, and sometimes those meetings can go on for many hours at a time.
They're passionate, but are they usually right or wrong?
Well, it's hard to say. I think it is case by case, but I have to say that given the fact that, as I believe, and obviously there may be a difference of opinion at the table, but I believe that there is a challenge in this town because it's very challenging to get to control the planning process. And I generally think that in many cases, it's great that people show up. I mean, think of the things that people, just citizens standing up, have saved, like Old City Hall would have been knocked down. Countless cases of, neighborhoods that we think of as jewels. The Annex saved because the Spadina Expressway was stopped. Forest Hill, Rosedale, but other neighborhoods as well, just the west part of downtown.
Well, Jennifer,
neighborhoods that were saved.
Let me give you a for instance on the other side of the coin. Across the road from this studio are two very tall buildings, the Minto Complex. And I remember several years ago when they were first proposed, lots of people came out of the neighborhood to say, this is awful, this is going to ruin our neighborhood, it's terrible. David Crombie was in that seat, the former Tiny Perfect Mayor of Toronto. I said, aren't you outraged by this? He said, no, in fact, I bought a unit in there.
Yes.
That's where he lives now. Those buildings are up. There's been plenty of other stuff that's come into the neighborhood to serve the people who live there. I don't hear a peep of opposition about it anymore. So
no, but you do hear opposition or concern about all of the next wave of developments that are coming into this neighborhood, and there are a significant number of developments coming into this neighborhood.
Like what?
There's right on the northeast corner, we have a major redevelopment, new tower coming in. I think there's approximately 23,000 new units coming in,
so you're talking condos.
into this area. Yes, yeah. And one of the challenges is that we need the employment to match that, to create that complete community that I was talking about. But what's interesting is a couple of things. I think we need to take responsibility. If we're having conversations in this city that aren't progressing us, then we need to take responsibility for that and say, well, we need to have a discussion about our shared future, about the kind of city we're trying to create and how we're going to get there. If we are simply saying, nope, I don't want to see any change, well, that's a different problem. And we're actually not seeing that much of, no, I don't want to see change. In fact, what I see in many of the public meetings that I'm at is a very engaged public that cares passionately about this city, that is struggling with a massive amount of development and not seeing the infrastructure being built to respond. And it's a catch-22. We have a provincial growth plan that is all about intensification. That's good. We know that shifting to more sustainable forms of transportation like walking, transit, cycling, we know that's good. But if the promise isn't accompanied with the delivery of the infrastructure, such as the transit, for 30 years we've underinvested in transit in this city. During that entire 30-year period, we've been growing exponentially. We've been very successful in the planning department. 86% of our growth in 2013 went exactly in the areas where we wanted to see it. Where did we want to see it? Along our transit corridors. But we're not delivering the transit.
But Steve, this I think Jennifer makes a really good point, and this is where I think the average citizen in Toronto is both mystified and disconnected from the political class, because people understand that there's been a lot of growth, and I think people are prepared to make certain adjustments through a transition. But it's as though somebody is going to have a concert at the Air Canada Centre tonight. We know there's 21,000 seats, and somebody with knowledge of, or almost malice of forethought has sold 30,000 tickets. There's a sense that we've simply not been prepared to do the consequential things upon these early decisions. Now, I must say, federalism is not a help here, because I do know something about the political class, and I've got plenty of sins of omission and commission of my own for which atonement is due, but you almost get the sense that this is a game of chicken. I'm going to force more into this vessel than I know the vessel can withstand, because I think I can turn up the heat, to mix the metaphor, and make somebody else pay. And it might be there are 3 levels of government. There's clearly an involvement of some degree for all parties, and but at the moment I think we've got a very serious problem, because I think the citizen is not feeling very well served by the fact that certain decisions are made, and consequential things that any rational person would expect to be done appear either to be not being done or so hopelessly delayed as to make you wonder.
If I may, and picking up on Sean's point and something you asked earlier, are the citizens always right? Well, I will say this. I live in the west part of downtown. So I live not far from the famous Union-Pearson link. And there have been lots of people getting up on their hind legs, citizenry saying, that's a diesel train, it's going to pollute, our kids are going to have trouble in their schools, it's going to be, the air is dirty, make it electric right away. I have not got a lawn sign on my lawn, about that train.
Why not?
My position on that is we're the embarrassment of the Western world. We're the only town around that you can think of any scale where you can't get off the plane at Pearson and get a train into downtown. We need a train. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But, if every citizen stands up and says, we can't do this, let's stop this train because it's not perfect, when are we ever going to get anything done? And we're talking, everyone here has brought up transit. Yeah, and let's get that train going, and if we can make it better later on, let's do that.
Here's what Richard Florida, the director of the Martin Prosperity Institute, says about the current planning landscape in Toronto. He says, my sense is Toronto has become a city where it is much easier to say no or veto projects than to do new and important initiatives and projects. Is he right, Jennifer?
No, if he was right, we wouldn't be the fastest growing city in North America. And you know, I've talked to Richard about this, and particularly around the Island Airport as a case in point. The reality is, when you're growing as quickly as we are, there are tough conversations we need to have, and most of those conversations are about scale. The Mirvish-Gary project, it's a question of scale. It's not a question of architecture, it's a question of scale.
This is the plan to put 3 large towers down on King Street.
That's correct. The airport, I think there's a very small minority saying get rid of the airport. I think most of the conversation is about at what point does the airport get too big? And we all know that's an important question.
It's the Island Airport.
The Island Airport, because if you took Pearson and you put it on the island, well, we all know that's absurd. You can't do that. That there's a certain point where you hit a breaking point where something that might be very good for the city right now and very good for the downtown right now, that it can hit a tipping point. And the reality is, we've actually hit a tipping point with respect to ground-related uses, cars and taxis and pedestrians. It's a disaster down there. And those issues need to be fixed in order to ensure that that airport is going to continue to be an asset, as opposed to something that starts to take away from other objectives, like having a spectacular waterfront.
Have you taken a position on whether Porter should be allowed to put in that extra long runway and
Well, sure. I didn't mention the Waterfront Secretariat is also in my portfolio. You know, it was too big. I had to stop. But the Waterfront Secretariat is also within my portfolio. So I have a whole team that's been working very diligently and very hard over the course of the past 6 months.
Have you come to a
assessing
conclusion?
The implications? Well, we have given the message back to the Airport Authority, not to Porter, to the Airport Authority, that we need to understand their long-term master plan. We don't want to be approving or suggesting that it is desirable for one carrier to be driving forward the master plan. The airport needs to have clarity about what its ideal scale is, and in line with that master plan, needs to make it very clear how it is going to address the ground-related issues that already exist at the scale that the airport is today.
Steve, can I do some work in the energy sector, and energy is often, particularly in urban environments these days, a flashpoint, and we have had a very active debate in the southwestern part of the GTA over the last few years about energy supply, gas plants, and all the rest of it. And
We've heard something about it.
I have heard something about that. Now, listen, in my old electoral district in the Ottawa Valley, there are 8 or 9 hydroelectric dams. I'm not so sure any of those could be built today. So one of the questions, and I'm a boomer, and I can be a bit self-critical, the boomer generation, we're different than our parents. My parents were products of a different time, and sacrifice was a word and a concept that was very much part of their experience. I have to tell you, I've been very lucky. I spent all my life in Ontario, born in 1951. I haven't been asked to make very much sacrifice, and sometimes public good is about a little bit of sacrifice. And so one of the things that I've come to realize is that, and some of these decisions are very difficult, but on vital commodities like water and energy, sometimes the choices are not as ideal as you would like them. And I think, quite frankly, the processes we've got in some cases now are absolutely self-defeating, because there is absolutely no consequence for saying no. And I've come to believe that in certain circumstances, a community has to be engaged to the point saying, well, there's no celestial ideal here. There's no perfection. So you have to find an alternative. Assuming that you want electricity or natural gas, we've got to get it to you. So how are we going to do that? And to the extent we can't get a decision, I'm increasingly of a mind to say, well, then I think we slow down and maybe stop the growth until we get some answers. Because why would I let you build a multi-million-dollar office building or a set of homes when I know now I don't have enough electrons and I can't get the natural gas to you? We don't do that with water and wastewater. Planners and builders must show a clear and achievable and an affordable plan to get the water and wastewater before we give you the permit to build the condos or build the homes. And on energy, Canadians understandably think God put us on this earth to enjoy cheap, available, homegrown electricity. It doesn't quite work like that.
You were energy minister once upon a time.
No, I was never the minister, but I spent a lot of time around the energy debate.
You were a critic once upon a time. So I'm inferring from your comments, you would not have canceled the gas plant in Mississauga. You'd have just said, suck it up, let's go.
Well,
you want to put your big homes there and have all this
there's
industry?
a real supply issue in the Southwest GTA. We just had an ice storm. I mean, I remember the ice storm of 1998 in eastern Ontario and western Quebec. And let me tell you, the second largest city in the country was in real jeopardy as those lines laden with ice were starting to crash. So, you know, there's for the sake of security and redundancy and resilience, I don't want 1.5 million people in South Peel and South Halton as some kind of West Berlin when it comes to energy supply. We just had a serious ice storm in southern Ontario. These are very real issues. I live in a 51-story apartment building at the corner of Bay and Bloor. We know our society is growing old, and we know, for the eloquent reasons that Jennifer and you cited earlier, we're growing up. So infrastructure, particularly things like transit, energy supplies, water supplies, if you're going to have the kind of urban intensification, it's a different world in 2014 than it might have been in 1952.
Peter, let me follow up with you on this. We've got just a few minutes left here, but it feels like in this city that when you want to get something big built, the approach you should take is, okay, I really want to build a 60-story building, so I'm going to ask for 80. They won't give me 80. They'll talk me down to 60. That's what I want in the first place, but I got to look like I'm upset about that. Is that really how it works?
Well, as far as I can tell, a developer doesn't get out of bed in the morning in this town for less than 60 stories. I mean, you walk around downtown. I mean, I'm glad to hear that the chief planner is concerned about 82, 84, and 86 that our friend David Mervish and Frank Geary want to put on King Street. And frankly, Mr. Geary, you know, the celebrated architect, was quite contemptuous of the process when he came to City Hall. It was shocking to hear him. He said that there were only 2 buildings in Toronto that he felt were worth saving, which were Old City Hall and Osgoode Hall. That was it. Everything else, in his opinion, is a teardown. Queen's Park, teardown.
Not
City
Queen's Park.
I mean, you know, so yeah, there is a certain amount of, I think there's an aggressive, a kind of a confrontational attitude that does exist among those people, and I don't blame them. Like, I think they're taking what the market will get. My bigger issue on this whole thing would be, let's charge them a development charge that pays for all these great infrastructure projects that we desperately need, that we've talked about so eloquently today, and you know, maybe get the scale to sort of match it by saying, hey, you have to pay a certain amount per unit, and we're going to use that to make this city work.
Jennifer, last minute to you. How do you ensure that there is a balance between those who want to put up impressive new projects in this city and those who have to live near them?
Well, that's what we do every day. What we're doing is balancing regional, citywide, and neighborhood interests, and that's precisely what we're doing when we go through a development process. And it's not just about 60 or 40 or 30. There are places where a 12-story building is too tall. It's all about context and respecting character. And one of the things that we're bringing forward in an attempt to do some of the proactive planning that's desperately needed in this city is the development permit system. And we made a recommendation to Planning and Growth Management that we bring in the development permit system here in Toronto. It's never been employed in Toronto. We've had the powers to do it for several years. And you could see a transformation over the next several years in our communities, because what we'd like to do is bring in development permit into high growth areas. And essentially what that means is taking a neighborhood boundary, so think King Spadina, for example, south of Queen Street, east of Bathurst, west of University, down to the tracks, and imagine that area has a special bylaw where instead of allowing the development industry to drive what the proposals are going to be, which is what we do right now, we sit back and wait for the proposals to come in and then we evaluate them on a one-by-one basis. This instead is a proactive approach where within a certain area, we create the built form framework and we look at energy, we look at water, we look at parks, we look at community amenities, we create an area plan, and then we entrench it in the bylaw. And like a heritage conservation district, you can't appeal just one site. You can only appeal the whole thing. And this would really be transformative. There's a lot of support for this on Community Council. There's a lot of community groups, BIAs, that support this approach. There's a few ratepayers associations who don't support it because they want to fight on a site-by-site basis.
Okay.
And that's really disheartening, but it could be transformative for the city.
Who do you want to be the next mayor?
Oh, I could never answer that question, but it's a great one.
To end on a positive note, by the way, I work sometimes
That's right.
at Ryerson University, and what Ryerson and Loblaws did with the iconic Maple Leaf Gardens, I'm no planner, but I think that's a pretty good result.
Spectacular.
It's a great
Spectacular.
result, and
Yeah.
we have lots of great things happening in this
We
city.
got to go, guys. Thanks so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. Lovely seeing you again. It's been so long.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.